of an object, and I say pivot yami is right here at the center. This is my axis of rotation, this is my pivot point. The thing is, I'm going to apply a force, right? Let me just say I'm going to apply let's see which one is the best force to apply okay, let's just say I'm going to apply a radial force. So I'm going to apply a radial force. So I'm going to apply a force towards the what? Towards the center. So I'm going to have a radial force. We call it a radial force. You can call it centripetal as well because it is towards the center. All of it is the same. When you say that you are applying a radial force in this context, we're just simply trying to say the force that you are applying is along the what? It's along the radius. It's along the radius of the circular path. That's why you call it a radial force. Because I'm sure you already know that armor forces, they act in a what? In a straight line. So in this case, our straight line is a what? Is the radius. So you're applying a force here, a radial force. We already know that when you're applying a radial force, we already did uniform circular motion. If now apply a force, a centripetal force, we also have a what? We also have a tangential response. With we cut the rope. Let's just say you are applying a force by means of a rope. If you cut the rope, what will happen to the object? It will move. So it means that we have got a tangential force. So we've got a tangential force, a tangential force causing a tangential acceleration. And then this is our radius. Really, the radius is constant along all parts of the circle. So we already know that if we're going to look at the tangential force, since you already did rotational motion, we know by Newton's second law that the sum of all these tangential forces, is going to be equal to the mass multiplied by the tangential acceleration. Yeah, because remember, last time, whenever you're having a tangential force is just the same thing as what? As a linear force. This happens when armor object they are rotating at the same time they are doing what? They are moving in a straight line. For example, if you take the wheel of a bicycle, as the wheel of the bicycle rotates, maybe clockwise, as the wheel of the bicycle rotates, at the same time it is moving in a what? In a straight line. That is why we're having a tangential motion. That's why we're also having a tangential motion. Okay, so this is, we're having rotational motion because this is rotating, but at the same time this object is what? Is moving. We're also having a tangential motion or translational motion. We usually use the term translational motion. So basically, as your object is rotating, it is also moving in a what? In a straight line with a certain tangential acceleration. That's why we say that the sum of all the forces is the mass multiplied by the acceleration. Alright, so I was still explaining basically when you add up all forces, you get the mass times the tangential acceleration, right? So it's mass multiplied by tangential acceleration. So similarly, if you are going to add armor torque as well, you must be able to get something equivalent to rotational motion. So remember, we already talked about the net torque, and we already did one application here. I would say the net torque helps us to see where the object will be moving. Is the object going to rotate clockwise or is it going to rotate anti-clockwise? That depends on the net torque, right? So if we just try to do a smaller derivation, the torque, we already know that torque is the force multiplied by distance. Force multiplied by the distance from the pivot. In this case, as I said, in this case, our force here is going to be F tangential. Let's talk about this tangential force. Let's just say I'm applying this tangential force here. So I'm having a force tangential here. That is, there is a certain distance R away from the what? From the pivot, away from the center of the circle. So basically here it's like I'm pulling the object here in this direction. So as I'm pulling it in this direction, you can see that it will rotate in a what? In an anti-clockwise manner. So in this case, this is the tangential force multiplied by the distance from here to here. We already know that it's R because it's the radius of the circular path, right? Yes. So this is going to be times R. If we analyze the tangential force, remember, when we add up all the tangential forces, let me just say that this is the sum of all the tangential forces. This is the net tangential force N9. So when I add up all the tangential forces, I know that I'm going to get the mass of the object times the what? Times the tangential acceleration. So this is going to be the mass times the tangential acceleration when I add up all the tangential forces, right? And then this is multiplied by the radius, because R line. So with that in mind, we now need to bring the rotational kinematics into this, because remember, with the rotational motion, we learned of the angular acceleration. You still remember angular acceleration, Angish? So sifuna connector in linear motion and the what? And the rotational motion, right? And we already said, you see, the linear motion is this one, a tangential to the circular part, right? So we know the tangential acceleration is equals to the angular acceleration multiplied by the what? By the radius. So the greater the radius, the greater the tangential acceleration. I still remember last time giving that example, we'll say, if you are having a bicycle that is having a bigger wheel and a bicycle having a smaller wheel, I should say, we've got a smaller bicycle and a bigger one. Which one tends to move faster than the other? It is the one having a what? A bigger wheel. It's because the bicycle having a bigger wheel, it has got a bigger value of R, no matter the bigger value of the radius. So basically, this is the tangential acceleration, which is equals to the angular acceleration multiplied by the radius of that a circular part that is rotating on. So then again, we can be able to substitute where there is tangential acceleration. We can now say that the sum of all the torques, and just drop the sigma symbol. There's no need for the sigma symbol anymore. But basically, this is Ft multiplied by R. So if we add up all the torques, laguno M corner, so remainder with M, laguno tangential acceleration, we can express it as angular acceleration multiplied by the what? By the radius. But we also have got another radius multiplied outside. This is because we are trying to connect a rotational motion within linear motion. That is why we are referring to the angular quantities as rotational motion. So here, if you are going to distribute, this is going to give you mass times angular acceleration multiplied by radius squared. So this is mass times angular acceleration multiplied by radius squared, because this is R times R. So here, this means that the sum of all the torques here is going to be equal to Bani. Let's just group this term OMR squared multiplied by Bani by angular acceleration. Why are we even grouping this? Is because we want to be able to introduce a certain quantity known as the what? The moment of inertia. The moment of inertia. I don't know if you guys need a definition. Any moment of inertia. What is the moment of inertia? The proper definition of a moment of inertia. All right, let's take this one, the simplest one, Nancy. All right, so the moment of inertia, we can define it as a physical property that measures an object's resistance to having its rotational speed changed. All right, I see Lincoln guy. Ninage high school. You guys already know first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion says, an object will try its best to do what? To remain with its motion unchanged. It's either it remains at rest, normal it accelerates with what? With uniform velocity. Unless we apply what? An unbalanced force. For example, this laptop here is on top of the table. It will not move until you move it. It looks like it's common sense, but it's very powerful in the world of mechanics. But basically, this object will not move until you do what? Until you move it. So what is causing the object to move is because it has got a what? An inertia. Let's just call it an inertia. So the inertia, remember, it relates to the what? To the mass of the object. So basically, the bigger the mass, the more the object resists any change in motion. For example, this laptop is resisting. But if I take this table, even if I apply a bigger force to it, it's not going to move easily. It is because it is what? Heavier. But if we are looking at the laptop is lighter. If I apply the same force on both objects, the laptop will do what? Will accelerate more. It's because this table is heavier, it has got a what? A greater inertia. Because it is heavier. It's not easy to push. So I went a car is not easy to push, but a human is easy to push. Ngabeka wena ngabeka imoto, supply force efanayo. Wena sokubona sungale, but imoto nje izobe lokhu imile. Sayibona kanjani ngisho. So basically we apply the similar concept on the what? On a rotational motion. That's when we introduce the moment of inertia. We now call it a moment of inertia. So the moment of inertia, it is still the object's resistance to having its rotational speed changed. So even if an object is rotating, it will want to continue rotating in the same way forever and ever, unless you do what? Unless you apply another unbalanced force. So actually this is the same, it's a Newton's first law equivalent, but sithatha sisakubani rotational motion. You get the sense, Angisho? Yes, it's the same thing as Newton's first law to say an object will want to continue in its state of motion unless you apply an unbalanced force. In this case, an object will still want to continue in its state of rotational motion with the same rotational speed until you do what? Until you apply a force to be able to change that. So basically in this case, we are going to say that this m times r squared, this quantity is known as the what? The moment of inertia of an object. This is the moment of inertia of an object. We use I, capital letter I, to represent it. Moment of inertia of the object. So this is for a point mass. This is just a mass. Let's just say into a movie, it is just a point, something like this. When you say it's a point mass, it simply means that it is just a smaller point, like the mass is just concentrated on a smaller point. We are still going to do different shapes because different shapes have got different moment of inertia. The last one is geometry. Different shapes have got different moments of inertia. For example, if I take a circle and I take a square and I take a rectangle and a triangle, its distribution of mass on those objects is not the same. It simply means that if I apply a force to them, to different objects of different shapes, they are not going to accelerate in the what? In the same way. For example, this is a square, right? A kind of a rectangular shape. I take something that is a circular. Okay, I started any shape. Round, spherical, something spherical. Or something cylindrical, on a scoop. Angbole. Anyone with a scoop to borrow me. Anazi scoop. Canning will say, no mind no mind cylindrical, different shapes. I can a circle, a circular man. Something that looks like a spherical. Cylindrical, spherical. Then I see polar. Yeah, khona kokubhola yona asizame ngayo. Iyakhona. Iyangakhona impela. All right. So I'm going to do demonstration with all these three objects. We're having three different shaped objects, right? This shape, this is the first shape enkhuluma ngayo. This is a rectangular shape angisho. This looks like a cylinder. It's a cylindrical shape, right? This I'm going to just assume that is kind of spherical. So if we apply the same force on both of them, they are not going to respond in the what? In the same manner. Reason being, these are different shapes. So if you're having objects with different shapes, they are not going to resist emotion in the same manner. It's because the mass is distributed in different ways. For example, on a square, isindo sale square is distributed all around it because it's a square, right? It is kind of a bit flat. But on a cylinder, it's not the same. On this, it's also not the same. So the distribution of the mass depends on the what? On the shape of the object. If you apply the same force to all objects of different shapes, they are not going to react the same way. They are not going to rotate in the same way. Because mangathi rotator nayo lento kanjeni, ayizokurotata ngendlela efanayo mangathi mhlambe ngirotator le. coming here, I'm applying a force that is rotating this object. Even if the force is the same, they are not going to respond in the same way. Reason being, they've got different shapes. So from that again, we can be able to just say this moment of inertia, the moment of inertia given by I is equals to mr squared. This one is for a point mass. So a point mass is kind of an idealized figure in most cases, because the point mass, angazi object to make an example, but basically a point mass, we're just talking about an object that kind of looks like a point, not really a sphere, it's a point, like very small, just a point. This is just a point. So we are just assuming that our mass is found in the smaller point. So the moment of inertia there, it is m times r squared. But generally, we can just say that the sum of all the torques, is equals to what? Is equals to the moment of inertia times the angular acceleration. So it is the exact same thing as the Newton's second law, but we are applying it in what? In rotational motion. Remember, when Newton's second law, we say that the sum of all the forces is the mass times the linear acceleration. But lana, we are going to say that the sum of all the torques, it is the moment of inertia times the angular acceleration. So it sounds like these quantities are the same. Actually, the moment of inertia, it is kind of the same thing as the mass, because it is resisting in the change in the state of motion. Just like in mass linear motion, right? In angular acceleration, it is similar also to tangential acceleration. It is still the same thing as the rates of change of velocity. But this time we're applying it in what? In rotational motion. So this is the Newton's second law in terms of the rotational motion. So basically, a moment of inertia depends on the geometry of the shape. So we've got different geometries and different moment of inertia based on those different geometry. Okay, so let's just take different objects. All right, as learning objects, how do we calculate this resistance? How do we calculate this resistance to the change in the state of motion on different shapes? Because I say that different shapes react in different manners. Different shapes react in different manners. Okay, it's fine. Let me just look for your shapes so that you guys can see them. But you guys are not going to do all of them first year. You guys will do some of them. All right. So let's talk about the moment of inertia for different geometries, right? So we're going to look at different geometries. We're going to look at different shapes, and we're going to look at their moment of inertia. The moment of inertia, all right? So we're going to start with a solid sphere. So the first one that we have is a solid sphere. Solid sphere, right? So when you say that a sphere is solid, it simply means that a sphere it is having something inside. Something right? A spherical shape that is filled with something inside. So we say that is going to be a what? A solid sphere. So a solid sphere, what is it going to have? It's going to have a moment of inertia equals to bani, equals to 2/5 times the mass times the radius squared. So it's going to have 2/5 times the mass times the radius squared. That is the solid sphere. So whenever, if you want to find a moment of inertia for a solid sphere, whenever they tell you, see, the object that you're applying a force to is a solid sphere, then it must be mass 2/5 multiplied by the mass multiplied by the radius squared. Yes, that's how it is. I'm actually looking for a simulation for you guys to see a quick one. Okay, just wait a bit. I want to show you something so that you can see in English show you with better precision. All right. I don't know if I did project learn or I did project. All right. So I want us to observe carefully, ladies and gentlemen. I want us to observe carefully, right? What I'm talking about. So Lana, in front of you, you are seeing different objects with different shapes. Different objects, different shapes. All of them, we are going to put them on an inclined plane with the same inclined angle. The same angle of incline is the same value. But you're going to put different objects, different shapes. This is an ice cube. This one is whatever it is, but they are different shapes. This is definitely evident, right? So you're going to play the simulation and try to see with him. Because here we're having a spherical shell. This is the green one. So this one is a spherical shell. This one is a solid sphere. This one is a cylindrical shell. This one is a solid cylinder. This one is an ice cube. So when we say that this is a spherical shell, a shell does not have anything inside. It's like you are just having a ball with nothing inside. Bese uthatha ibhola something phakathi. So a ball with nothing inside is kind of a ball with air, that is just filled with air. And so you are pumping a ball will be full of air. That is a what? That is a spherical shell. We say it's a shell if it doesn't have anything inside. But if it is filled with something inside, we say it's a what? It's a solid something. Whenever we say something is solid, it means it's phakathi connected to the phakathi. Sayibona ngisho. Get the sense, right? So now we're going to run the simulation all together. If we incline them to the same angle, in this case, let me just choose an angle of 45 degrees. Let's choose 20 degrees to make the motion a delay. So if I'm going to run the simulation, look at this. Which one got to the ground first? Ice cube. So I want to say they are on the same incline. These objects are on the what? On the same incline, same angle, subjected to the same force, with the same mass, but they are not going to respond in the same way to the motion that we're implementing on. It's because they've got different moment of inertia. They've got different ways of resisting a change in the state of motion. In a moment of inertia in England, which one would you say that it has got the biggest moment of inertia? Okay, as we foot Westbill, right? Let's reset and start again. Which one has a biggest moment of inertia? Cylindrical shell, yes, because it is the one that is delaying to get to the ground. Why delay to get to the ground? Because it's resisting the what? The motion. It has got a greater tendency of resisting the rotational motion. So here we can say that the ice cube, whether the ice cube is on a frictionless plane, that's one of the things that make it to run faster. But when we are looking at the other one, the cylindrical shell, it delays to get to the what? To get to the ground. It's because it has got a greater moment of inertia. It has got a bigger resistance to the what? To the motion. And Masingati Abuga on the actual values, the spherical shell in moment of inertia is 2/3 times mr squared. For the solid sphere is 2/5 times mr squared. For the cylindrical shell, it is mr squared. For the solid cylinder is half mr squared. Which one will have a biggest value here if the mass and the radius are constant, are the same for both of them? Yiphi ezwane value in England mathematical? Cylindrical shell yes, because mr squared, that this is like 1 multiplied by mr squared. That is going to be way bigger than 2/5 mr squared. 2/5 mncane no 1 angisho. I just say m no r no squared is the same thing, right? They have the same mass, same radius. Same mass, everything. But the different thing is the coefficient that you are multiplying here. So in this case, the cylindrical shell will tend to have a biggest value of the inertia, moment of inertia. So this one will always have the biggest value of the moment of inertia. But this one, after 1, which one is slightly bigger than the other one? Last no 2 over 3, last no 2 over 5, last no 1 over 2. Which one will have another second biggest value? 2/3. 2/3 mkhulu no 1 over 2, right? Yes. So it means that the spherical shell will be the second last to land to the ground. So it is the one that is resisting, but a resistor is slightly slower than the what? Than the cylindrical shell. Which other one? After 2/3, yipe half. So half. So the solid cylinder, it is the third resistive one. And then after half, 2 over 5, right? Yes. So this one, it is the fourth resistance. And then yipe one is smallest moment of inertia land, the frictionless cube. Now, so frictionless cube, it doesn't have a friction on its own. We already know that AMA conditions they are idealized. But here you can run the animation and try to say assumption 8, which is it correct. If you run the animation again, you can see what Lana, the cylindrical shell is the last one, the green one, it is the second last animation. Is it? And then, okay, let's run it again. I don't know if we can make it slower. Adjust the angle maybe to 10 degrees. If we adjust the angle of the incline to 10 degrees, we run the simulation. As we can see, EP, ranking it, is it correct? Which is the ranking correct? Ignore the frictionless cube. Okay, then which one was last? Was the cylindrical shell, Anish? Which one was second last? The green one, no matter the red one, no matter the yellow. The green one. Yes. After the value of 2/3 is after 1, Anish. Like when we were comparing this, to say that this one is the biggest moment of inertia, Anish. This one is the second biggest, Anish. After the green one, what followed? Kulandele bani? Ngicana isiseni yena ningasanaki laba abalenda kuqala. Yellow noma? Okay, I'll give you the link. You run the simulation, uzubonti party. By mathematical approximation, already rank them to their odd. We can just remove some of them. If we want to rank these alone, as keeping nang because he has the values of 9. Okay. Okay, alone, these ones. Which are green? Yeah, but you kind of get the sense of what I'm trying to say, Anish. The moment of inertia is the resistance. Choltilana, they didn't keep the radius constant, but the moment of inertia kind of tells you, how much is an object resisting to rotate, no matter resisting to change its rotational speed. So I want to Anish. Yes. So just try to do this simulation as much as you can, so that you guys can get used to visualizing physics concept. But I think within Jamanje we can already see what's happening. Remember, this is what I was explaining to you. Whenever you are applying a force, you are causing this to rotate. When you apply a force, you cause this to rotate. If you apply a force here, it's going to rotate more. That is the radius of 2. If you increase the radius, what will happen? Maybe, I don't know, I think there's a maximum value of 2. It cannot exceed to 2, it's fine. But if you make the circle smaller, and then maybe you increase the force, you increase the force, Ganjen. You increase the force, you make the circle smaller. What is the effect, lab? Ganjan, how is it like? Small, is it smaller, normal, faster? Is it faster or is slower than the first one? Is faster. We increase the force, right? Although we minimize the distance or the radius, oxalayo, the torque produced was so great. It's 50 newtons meters, causing this angular acceleration. So you can now temper and try with different objects, such as a spherical shell, and apply the same thing and try to see which one will have a bigger one. Look at this, 14.99. This is smaller than 25 radians per second squared. So a solid sphere will accelerate faster than the what? The spherical sphere. So it depends also on the shape. I just kumela ama factors that's affecting torque. The force, the distance, the shape now. Okay, because basically the shape matters. If I put a solid cylinder, it's gonna be a different thing. Same force, but look at this, the angular acceleration is now 20 radians per second squared. If I put the cylindrical shell, I know that this one is the very big moment of inertia. As one will say, will it rotate that much? This is a cylindrical shell. Do you see the angular acceleration is what? 10 radians per second squared. So the acceleration here also depends on the what? On the moment of inertia. It depends on the moment of inertia. So and also on the shape as well. So you keep on changing different shapes. I will give you the simulation. You guys will keep on changing the different shapes, changing the parameters. We will now see which ones are having effect. This is a very important study because whenever you are building or modeling machines or whatever, you make calculations. If I want i-fan ukuthi i-rotate kanjena, i-fan yabo le fan le fan le phaphatha umoya. Exactly. If I want the fan to rotate kanjena, I need to make calculations kanjena. I need to use this material. So it's a very important step. That's why you see with physics, after physics you can be able to do multiple things. Mechanics, engineering, everything, robotics, everything. But if you are interested in robotics, you can text me at Ellen. We can make plans with the future. So let's just finish up writing my expression. But since we have a cylindrical shell, right? We have a cylindrical shell. This one is a solid sphere. It's a sphere that is having something inside. A cylindrical shell, in a moment of inertia, what did we say at the moment of inertia for a cylindrical cell is? Moment of inertia, mr squared, right? It's treated as a point mass, this one. So it's mr squared. That's a cylindrical shell. So we can take examples such as bicycle wheels. For example, bicycle wheels. So the wheel of a bicycle, we already know that it's going to exhibit this property because it's a cylinder. Okay, it's not really a cylinder, but yeah, it kind of forms a cylinder. The bicycle wheel kind of forms a cylinder, right? So when we are having a solid cylinder, it's now a cylinder that is filled with something inside, right? It's now a cylinder that is filled with something inside. So this one is going to be equal to 1/2 mr squared. This is a solid cylinder. So basically, different shapes have got different moment of inertia. Different shapes have got different moment of inertia as well. So you can keep on doing more and more and more shapes, but for now, I'm just going to allow my shapes, right? So let's just look at this road. Yeah, we also have a road there. Let's make an example. So we're going to put a pivot here, and we're going to have a rod shape. So this is our pivot, which is going to act as an axis of rotation, right? So our pivot point here, we're going to take this object with a mass M, right? And then it has got a length L. There's a length L. And then they say that it is attached at one end of a frictionless pivot, and it is free to rotate about the pivot in the vertical plane. It is free to rotate around the pivot in the vertical plane. Now we apply a force to it, and then the force that we're going to apply here is going to be it's just going to be the gravitational force alone, right? I hear they already gave you everything, but basically they tell you this thing is free to rotate, and there is no friction on the pivot. So what will be causing it to be able to rotate? It is the gravitational force. Because it's like in a vertical plane, it's like vertical. We just say that This is not so much frictionless. It's just gonna rotate freely. What's causing it to rotate freely? It is the gravitational force. A gravitational force, we know that it acts on the what? On the center of mass. So the gravitational force, it acts on the center actually of this object. So we're likely going to have our gravitational force here acting at the what? At the center. At the center of mass. This is the gravitational force given by the mass multiplied by the gravitational acceleration. So now they say the rod is released. Should I'm releasing my rod. I'm holding it, then I'm releasing it. So the moment I'm releasing the rod, it's going to rotate due to the gravitational force. Yes, and it's going to rotate about the pivot. Okay, so now they say the rod is released from rest. So it was initially from rest, but now we are releasing it in the horizontal position. What are the angular acceleration of the rod and the initial translational acceleration of its end, of its right end? So I finished these two. We are looking for angular acceleration. That's the first thing that we are looking for. And then we are also looking for initial translational acceleration. We are also looking for the translational acceleration. So we're looking for two accelerations there. So here you are not given any masses to work with. All right, let's just see. Did they give you a mass? No, not really. It's fine. So if I really mass later on. All right. Yeah, we don't even need the mass for this one. So now we can see that the only force a contributor to the motion is the what? The gravitational force that is acting at the center of the rod. All right. So basically, we know that whenever we have got irrotational motion, we need to introduce into a torque, because basically the torque and the force is kind of the same thing, kind of similar. It's just that the torque also takes its distance into what? Consideration. So now if we want to try and calculate the torque here, do we have the distance here? Do we have the distance? We have the length, right? So we can say that we have the length, which is L. Yes, indeed. But if force here, it is being applied at which distance? The force. Because if we're going to say the torque is going to be equal to the cross product of the force and the distance vector, right? Yes. We know this is true. But my question is, the force and the distance. Okay, I'm calling an angle between them. The force and the distance, what angle is between them? What angle is between them, Lapa? 90 degrees English, because we're applying the force perpendicular to the distance vector. Let's just say this is the length, which will give us the distance vector. But basically, we are applying the force in a perpendicular direction to this thing. So we can say that the angle here is what? Is 90 degrees. So we can just rewrite this as the magnitude of force multiplied by the distance. As 60 so it is just sine theta anymore, because you know that the sine theta is what? Is 1. So now, when we want to multiply here, the force, we already know that the force is going to be the mass multiplied by the gravitational acceleration, because we are talking about the force of gravity in this case. That is the force acting on the object. That is the force causing the rod to be able to rotate. Okay, so lana the distance, what is going to be the distance, Lan? What do you think the distance is going to be? 1/2. Okay, 1 over just half, 0.5 meters. Almost there, 0.5 meters. What if I say, Uchi, maybe this length is 1,000 meters? Hello, yeah, the half of L, exactly. So in this case, we know the gravitational force. It acts on the what? On the center of mass. It simply means that the gravitational force acts on the center of the object. In this case, the object is this length. So the center of the object, the central point is here. That's the center of mass. That is where the force is acting. And if it's on the center of mass, it means this length, the total length of the object, is divided by 2. That is why we say that here our distance is going to be length over 2. So a gravitational force, it doesn't apply at the what? At the pivot. So a gravitational force in this case cannot be able to cause maximum torque. Yeah.
I just want to ask you in regards to that, usually the distance multiple hypotheses.
Oh, the crossword. Oh, yeah, yeah. The order. It's fine. The order is supposed to be like that. But it's going to, yeah, it's going to have an effect on the direction. Yeah, it's going to have an effect on the direction. Minor effect, though. Yeah, order. Start with distance. She's right there. Okay. All right. So with that in mind, let's continue. Let's continue. So Lana, we already have that our torque is mg times L over 2, right? Mg times L over 2. Yes, we have it. It's kind of the magnitude of the torque in this case, the size of the torque. Now, what are we looking for, Tin? So I calculate the angular acceleration as well as the tangential acceleration. Size of angular acceleration, tangential acceleration. How can we relate a torque to angular acceleration and tangential acceleration? Angular, then we move to tangential one. How can we relate those? How do we relate a torque and angular acceleration? It's in a formula that we use to relate them. The sum of all torques is equals to the moment of inertia multiplied by the angular acceleration. This is the Newton's second law, but in terms of in terms of torque. So in this case, we see that we only have got only one contributing force, which is gravitational force. So we can just say that this torque is kind of the net torque, because that's the only force acting on the object. So this is actually mg multiplied by L over 2 is equals to the moment of inertia. This one is a what? It's a rod. It's a what? It's a rod. I didn't add it to the shapes, but the rod is also one of the objects that we have. If you are having a rod shape, the moment of inertia is given by 1 over 3 mr squared. 1 over 3 times the mass times the radius squared. I forgot to mention it, but basically, whenever you're having a rod, that's how you find the moment of inertia. So this is 1 over 3, the mass of the object times the radius squared, multiplied by the angular acceleration. Angular acceleration is what we are trying to solve in this case. So we are just going to keep it like that, and then we'll solve for angular acceleration. You do your divisions, OM no M will divide each other, right? And then when you divide these both sides, what are you going to get? You've got 1 over 2, you've got 1 over 3. It's going to say 1 over 2 over 1 over 3. That's going to give us 3 over 2, right? Yes, that's going to give us 3 over 2. And then you have got UG, you have got UL. Now you are writing by mr squared, right? Okay, but 2 mr. So you have got UG, you have got you have got UL. Lana, what can we do further? Lana, we need to realize that this is a what? This is a rod. So since this is a rod, we need to know what is the R standing in for? Radius. So let's just change it. In this case, this is not really, it's not rotating. So Lana, our total distance there is the what? It is the length. So for a rod, when you say half mr squared, the R there, it is standing in for the what? For the length of the rod here. This R here is actually the length of the rod, because it doesn't have a curvature. A rod does not have curvature, it's straight, right? But others, they've got a curvature. That is why they're having a radius. That is why we're using a radius for them. These ones, they've got some curvature. That's why we're using a radius for them. But for a rod, you can use a length. So let's just use length there, right? Length squared. And then you've got length squared, you divide it on the other side. O length is on top, on the numerator. O L squared is on the denominator. So we're going to have O L ganjena, and then we're going to remain with Uchi pezul. This is equals to the angular acceleration. This is the expression for the angular acceleration. So angular acceleration in this case, for a freely moving object, it only depends on the what? On the gravitational acceleration and the what? and the length. And the proportion yakhona imi kanjani? You can see that the angular acceleration is directly proportional to g, but g is a constant on Earth, right? Let's just assume we are not moving to another planet. CT is going to be inversely proportional to the length. So the length is the only significant factor that is contributing. So it means we say if the length is going to be longer, your road, if it's going to be longer, it's going to accelerate more than a road that is what? That is short. Okay, inverse proportion, right? If the length is more, this thing will accelerate less. If the length is small, it's going to accelerate more. Inverse proportion. So you can test that out. You can try to take rulers. Ruler 30 centimeter. Go and find a 1 meter ruler and hold them at one point. Try to see which one will accelerate more in an angular manner. But basically, this is the angular acceleration. It only depends on this. Guys, whenever you are done calculating something, analyze our relationships between the variables. That's the most important point of physics. It is to analyze the what? The relationships. Obviously, if I increase this factor, what will happen to this factor? If I reduce this factor, what will happen to this factor? Why are we even doing all of these calculations? We are doing them so that we know, how much does this affect this? So I went there and once you know how much does this affect this, whenever you want to design something, whenever you want to model something using this physics concept, you are going to look at which factor must I increase, which one must I decrease. So semester 2 when you do electricity, to those that are continuing physics, when you do electricity, you need to analyze how things are related, so that whenever you model devices, because Lana, this is for you guys to be innovative, not to calculate and lol, because the degree of calculator kela angazi zobu calculate abani ini, because I'm going to calculate actually simple, must be realistic. But if you know how to apply, analyze relationship, know what to increase. In this case, if you're going to increase the length, this thing is going to rotate less. So if you want to create a device that will rotate more, are you going to use a bigger length? No. You're going to use a smaller length, because it's going to rotate more. You analyze that as well. Okay, they said they want angular acceleration as well as the tangential one, right? We already have the angular acceleration. The tangential acceleration is way easier to find from that. Because you know that the tangential acceleration is equals to the angular acceleration times the radius. But in this case, our radius is the what? The length. Yes. We just multiply it by that. So the tangential acceleration is going to be, the angular acceleration says it is 3g over 2l. So this is 3g over 2l multiplied by l. From this, you can cancel out these two factors such that you're going to remain with 3 over 2 times the gravitational acceleration. So still, this is kind of a free fall rotation. I don't know if that exists, but basically the tangential acceleration only depends on the what? On the gravitational acceleration by a factor of 3 over 2. Otherwise, the tangential acceleration, the gravitational acceleration for a rod that is falling on its own or that is rotating on its own, it actually is the same as the gravitational acceleration. It's just that we multiply 3 over 2 to reduce it.